I have a hunch Nick Wright might be in this bunch. Some will say you had to match just because you can't let an asset like him walk. He was the number one pick a few years ago, and even if you're going to trade him down the line, you need to keep him. And that's true, but I actually like it from a basketball perspective. And look, I am not picking the Phoenix Suns to win the championship next year. They let me down. I went all in for them this season, and they blew it. They will not get my pick next year. However, they are a legitimate contender. And without Deandre Ayton, I don't think they would have been. I think they would have been good. They would have made the playoffs, but they would not have had a chance, a prayer of contending for the Western Conference title without Deandre Ayton. I get that he had some issues with Monty Williams. He's got to grow a bit and mature a bit. There's nothing insurmountable. They're going to have to massage his ego and smooth things over because I'm sure he's offended that they didn't just give him the deal in the first place. But they showed that they valued him, and I think all of that stuff can be rectified. Nick, he's 17 points, 10 rebounds a game, and he doesn't bog down your offense because you got to run a lot of plays for him. He's got a nice touch on his jumper. He should keep improving. I like Deandre Ayton, and I'm going to tell you this, Nick. He came within a whisker of being on my third team All-NBA as the center. I did go with Rudy Gobert, Wildes, but he was within a whisker. And so, yeah, this was the right move by the Phoenix Suns.
Okay. It may have been the right basketball move, but it sure was an odd move. And if I'm Deandre Ayton, I'm less than thrilled this morning, even though I've got $133 million coming my way. And here's why, Nick. The way that you get things matters. Like, there's a reason when you're about to propose, you get dressed up, you got the ring, it's in a nice little box. You go down on one knee. It's like, wow. Even though it is a transaction of a ring, you don't just say, hey, want to get married, left the ring in my underwear drawer. Even though the transaction of the ring would be the same. For the hoops that Deandre Ayton had to jump through to get this money, and the fact that the Suns didn't really want to give him this money just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Then there's this tweet that I saw this morning. I didn't quite understand why Indiana made the offer. Then Phoenix said, okay. So did the Suns get pushed around by letting the Pacers offer sheet to Deandre Ayton? Or was this the plan all along? Could have offered him max 5,179 or 4,138. Comes in at 4,133. Like, oh, so I guess I'm Deandre Ayton. I'm like, well, yeah, thanks for matching the offer, but you actually saved yourself maybe $40 million. And finally, just the way that the season ended. In that closeout game, which was a disaster, obviously, for Phoenix, he only played 17 minutes. When Monty Williams was asked about it, he said, it's internal. There's reports that Deandre Ayton didn't want to go in the game because it was out of hand. So it was just odd. And I know it's like, well, the deal got done. They had the best record. I get it. But it's all from all the contracts that we've seen, it's usually the player is super happy. Dame is super happy. Murray's super happy. He's with the Hawks. This one just feels like, thanks.
Yeah.
It's the most lackluster $133 million I've ever received.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this from Ayton's perspective and then this big picture on the Suns. I listen, what the Suns did here would be great, kind of cap manipulation, team management on NBA 2K. It's potentially disastrous when it involves real human beings and real emotions. And even on the latest version of NBA 2K, you have to deal with how guys feel. I know, Brew, I know you'll love that. There's a happiness, meter, so to speak, on that. And depending on how you negotiate with your virtual players, it can make them mad. I know you don't like that. Yeah, I know it. I knew that would.
That's how we
grind your gears, my friend. However, the Suns, Monty Williams and Chris Paul, notably, have massive work to do. And I don't blame Chris Paul for this at all. I don't really blame Monty Williams. But they are the two unquestioned leaders of that team in getting Deandre Ayton back into the fold, getting Deandre Ayton back excited about being a Sun and trying to get him to put what has been a wildly, for him, disappointing last 15 months behind him. He was the #1 pick of the draft. The team went to the finals. He was clearly their third best guy on that finals run. And if you remember, during that run to the finals, there was a time where he was shooting deep into the playoffs, like 74% from the field. He played well, and then Giannis happened, right? And then for him not to get paid then, for them to go through this whole rigmarole this offseason, and for his name to be included in all of the Kevin Durant rumors, I think it's going to be hard to get him back into the fold. The other thing this means for Phoenix is, because Brew was right. I was going to say you can't let the asset walk for nothing. That was usually it really ticks me off when you predict what I'm going to say. This one you got correct. You were right. That is what I was going to say. You can't let the #1 pick walk and get nothing in return. But you now can't trade him until January 15th. So their ability to trade for Kevin Durant, at least this offseason, just got far more difficult. And now I want to throw this at you, the big picture Suns thing. I think the Suns' window's closed. I think the Suns' window opened, started to crack open with that bubble run. It's like, oh, could they be interesting? Then they got Chris Paul. They got some luck in the first round of the playoffs with the Davis injury. They parlayed that into being up 2-0 in the finals. They then, as I said, Giannis happened. Last year, they looked far and away like the best team in basketball throughout the regular season. They were healthy in the playoffs. I know there's now COVID rumors. And then they collapse against Luka. Now, in the long-term history of it, it's like, okay, Giannis beat you and Luka beat you. Two guys that are going to go down as top 10 all-time players. It happens. But here's the other thing that happened. Chris Paul got older. Deandre Ayton's relationship, I think, got worse. I don't think you're going to get I believe that to be true. I think you actually agree with me. You coined the term Luka legend, my friend. Chris Broussard came up with that. But that's neither here nor there. I think their window's closed. I think Chris Paul will try to maintain as best as he can, but I think it's fair to say he will probably be a little worse next year than he was this past year. I don't know what the relationship's going to be like with Ayton, and I don't look at the Suns moving forward as a top-tier contender in the West or for the title. I think they're a very good team, but I think their championship window was these last 2 years, and they fell short, both of them.
I don't hate that take. I mean, obviously, Golden State's ahead of them. The Clippers are ahead of them. Probably Dallas is ahead of them. So, and you're right. Chris Paul's probably going to be not as good this year as he was last year. So, I don't hate that. I still give them an outside chance. Memphis may be another team that's better than them. But it's closing. They got to regroup because Chris Paul is just too old. But let me say this about DeAndre and the franchise, the relationship. I do think they can put it together and they can rebuild it and reconcile, so to speak. Because remember, this is a team whose ownership was accused of racism and misogyny and investigations are ongoing and things like that. And when those reports initially came out, the thinking was, well, what in the world is going to happen? Some people were saying Chris Paul needs to boycott and all of that stuff, and they played through it and obviously had some success. So Robert Sarver, the owner, who's embattled, as I just said, is also one of the cheapest, maybe the cheapest owner in the NBA. This can be put on him. This may not be, from DeAndre's perspective, for all his issues with Monty Williams, this may not be on Monty or James Jones, the GM. It might be from ownership. Because he doesn't want to go into the luxury tax and things like that. And he had to keep Ayton. So I think it can be smoothed over because, to be honest, you can put it all on ownership, who he already has his challenges and his issues and his bad reputation. And they've played through it. So they can work it out.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.